Just want to do a quick video on legal stuff, as I promised. Right now, there's a bunch of, in my opinion, pointless lawfare going on in some of these interconnected communities. It's getting ridiculous. Let's just be real. It's getting ridiculous. And this is not a personal attack on anyone. In fact, this is just to inform you that maybe you're making a mistake. So maybe you want to read up a little bit, get educated a little bit more, because as we've seen with the Granny's Watching and the hat case, which I covered the hat a little bit, but if you want to look at the how that case went, it was pretty ridiculous. And those people that were going after Granny and the barbecue lady, they absolutely made fools of themselves. And you don't want to do that, do you, dear listener? So I'm going to be brief, and I am not an attorney. I am a trained, experienced, and educated legal professional, but I'm not an attorney, so we're going to use articles written by attorneys to get through this. Without further ado, here we go. So this first one, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name because it would be, well, it would be hilarious if I tried, but I'm just not going to. He's basically is talking about the difference between a civil and a criminal lawsuit, which should be pretty apparent since there's a lot of crime people around here, and you should know the difference, but essentially the state, the government is not prosecuting you. We're going to skip right down to the critical elements, and I will leave links in my description of this video if you all want to look for yourselves and read. I would highly recommend that you research your state's laws, and if you're wanting to sue somebody, you might have to look into their state's laws as well. Best practice would be actually consulting an attorney, but it is what it is. All right, critical elements. A dispute between private parties or entities. Plaintiff seeking compensation or resolution for a perceived wrong or harm or wrongs, excuse me. In other words, you have to have an injury that you want to make whole. All right, is not for punitive purposes, as we'll get to. It has a lower burden of proof. You still need evidence. You still need preponderance over the evidence, but the stakes are not as high as, like, say, a criminal case. You have the choice between a jury trial or a bench trial. Bench trial, the judge just gets the ultimate say in everything, if you didn't know that. Potential for financial compensation or other remedies, we just talked about that, is not for punitive reasons, although there can be a punitive cost to usually the defendant, but that doesn't happen usually. All right, not imprisonment. So you're not going to send someone to jail over a civil suit. Sorry. All right, 4 elements: duty, breach, causation, damages. Pretty self-explanatory. A person has a duty to someone else. They breach it. They have to prove cause, and then the damages have to be proven. All right, very simple stuff. Again, this is going to be a pretty short video, I hope, which is why I'm speaking quickly, trying to get it wrapped up. All right, a couple other things we're going to look at before we go. Okay, what proof do you need to get a restraining order? Because I've seen talk about restraining orders a lot lately for some reason. A specific instance of abuse or harassment. The threat of violence or further abusive behavior or harassment. So it has to be continuing. You tell them to stop, they don't stop. Real simple. Okay, and each state handles this differently, but it mentions a couple of bullet points here. You are in a qualifying relationship with your respondent, i.e. ex-partner, current, or, ex. Let's just say X of some form. You are reasonably in fear of imminent physical violence. Okay. So the person, maybe you have to demonstrate they might be willing to travel across the country if they're, internet boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, that they're going to travel across the country and cause you harm. Okay, real quick. It's a real short article. Last but not least, we're going to look at, is it illegal to threaten someone with legal action? According to the article, it is not. However, how it's done matters. So, false statements and defamation, threatening legal action based on false statements or with the intent to damage someone's reputation, may be considered defamation. If the threat involves spreading false information that harms the person's character, it can lead to legal consequences. But that gets back to you have to prove that your reputation is irreparably harmed. And ask an attorney. And this is anecdotal, but I've spoken to attorneys about this before, and it is very difficult in their opinions to prove this, to win these types of cases. Just saying. Putting that out there. Extortion or coercion. When legal threats are coupled with demands for money, property, or other benefits, it can cross into extortion territory. Extortion involves using threats to obtain something of value, making it a criminal offense. Come to think of it, I think that dork in the newspaper boy hat has actually done this before, but I don't recall. If he has, someone let me know in the comments. Harassment and stalking. Continuous unwanted legal threats, especially when accompanied by harassment or stalking behavior, can lead to charges of harassment. The method and frequency of communication play a crucial role in determining whether it constitutes harassment. Might want to think about that one. I'm going to just skip over ethical violations by legal professionals. Doesn't really apply here. Abusive process. This one is highly important. Please pay attention. Threatening legal action solely to harass or burden someone without a legitimate legal basis may be considered an abusive process. Courts frown upon the misuse of legal procedures for malicious purposes. I've said this before. Legal professionals hate this shit. Don't do it. You're wasting our time. I mean, we get paid either way, but at the same time, judges in particular hate this shit. They don't like their time wasted. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. If the legal threat is made with specific intent to cause severe emotional distress, it may lead to a claim for intentional infliction of emotional distress. This involves outrageous conduct that goes beyond the bounds of decency. Okay, and I'm going to leave it there. I think some of you guys might want to read this one. Again, link will be in my description. I'm going to just leave it there because we're almost at 9 minutes. But I hope you guys have a good one. Be safe. Be cool. And stop with this shit. See you later.